If you're not actively trying to not be a standard American, then you're automatically falling into standard American. And standard Americans die younger than anybody else, have the most diseases, take the most pharmaceuticals, spend the most money by far to come in last place, to be the sickest and die the youngest. That's your standard. That's the path you're on, unless you're purposely doing things to exit off that path.
You're listening to the What the Gut podcast, where busy moms can come for a holistic approach to health and vitality. I'm Allison, your host, a holistic health and wellness coach. In this space, we'll dive into the intricacies of achieving holistic wellness while balancing the demands of daily life as a busy mom. What the Gut is your haven for navigating the challenges that come with juggling numerous tasks while aiming for a healthier, more balanced life. Join me as we uncover practical solutions to common health hurdles, from managing fatigue to understanding all things gut health. Through insightful discussions, actionable insights, and tailored lifestyle strategies, my goal here is to empower you to embrace a vibrant, nourishing life while saying goodbye to being overwhelmed and exhausted. So if you're ready to embark on this transformative journey towards holistic well-being, hit that subscribe button. Get ready to discover the secrets to thriving in motherhood while nurturing your overall wellness. A quick reminder, everything discussed here is for educational and empowering purposes only and is not intended for personalized medical advice. Consult your personal healthcare provider for personalized medical advice. Welcome to What the Gut, where we create our own path to holistic health, one episode at a time. Dr. Ben, thank you so much for being here on the podcast today. How are you doing?
You're welcome, Allison. I'm great. How are you today?
I'm good. So I was also at the Need Your Cure Wellness Conference. I had a booth there. So I got to hear you speak just briefly, but I love connecting with other practitioners that are functional minded. So it's really great to have you here today. I know that you're a medical doctor and you did practice conventional medicine for a while, and then you left that to pursue functional medicine. And I know that through your journey, God revealed these 4 pillars of health to you, which you said were nutrition, hydration, movement, and peace. And so now you help other people understand how to use these pillars while seeking the deeper truth that really can make us whole, both physically and spiritually. And I just love all of that. I resonate so much with that. And I love how you blend medicine using faith with this holistic approach. So it's just awesome to connect with another provider.
Well, thank you. Likewise, it's awesome to connect with someone who gets it, understands that, and kind of on the same journey. And I'm sure in your own way, but yeah, it's been quite the ride, and it's been awesome learning something beyond just conventional medicine. It actually really helps people resolve their issue, not just manage their issue.
Right. And so I know you're from Texas, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Born and raised. Grew up in a little
Yeah.
town in Central Texas with both my granddads were the doctors in that town.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is what got me into being interested in being a doctor, just watching those 2 guys. I mean, they were GPs, those old school, do everything, deliver babies, do surgeries, do house calls, take care of the whole family. They were
Yeah.
old school doctors, and they just impacted the community so much, helped so many people, that it kinda is what got me interested in that and pursuing that.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I'm from Mississippi, and I was invited to be at the conference in Oxford. And so there's a few other functional minded people that I've connected with, but when I went to the conference, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm not the only one." And I think especially in the South, I think it's a lot more prominent in Texas for sure and more welcomed, but especially here in Mississippi, like there's not very many people that are functional minded. And so I love that you just came to Mississippi to speak to this audience here. I would really love for you though to share your story about like how and why you decided to leave conventional medicine and really step into functional medicine.
So I would probably describe it more of not necessarily leaving conventional medicine, although in a way I did. I still utilize that at times.
For sure. Yeah.
So I like to, remind people this isn't just about, hey, chunk everything, chunk all your meds, conventional medicine's a devil, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if I'm in a bad car wreck and need a trauma surgeon, I want to get to a good trauma surgeon. It's the
Yeah.
chronic diseases, and we'll get into that. But so I didn't know anything about alternative, holistic, zero. I mean, my granddads were MDs and two uncles were MDs. My great great granddad was an MD in Arkansas. And so I didn't know anything but MD.
Right.
And I didn't know what chiropractors did. I didn't know anything about naturopathic or functional. And functional wasn't even a thing back in the day. But anyways, I'm just saying, I'm not one bent this way in any way. I wasn't raised in any way to be holistic minded or even seeking it. So I wasn't seeking it. I went to UT Houston Medical School. So that's allopathic, MD Anderson hospitals where I did most of my training. That's a big, institution. Some consider it one of the best cancer hospitals in the world. And the Texas Medical Center in general being one of the most outstanding places of medicine, conventional medicine in the whole world. 2 medical schools are there, a pharmacy school, nursing school, dental school, bunch of hospitals. It's an amazing complex down in Houston. So, graduated in 2002 and then went to Waco for family practice residency training because that family practice training program trained doctors to go to small towns or to go to the mission field internationally. So they taught us how to do some surgeries, deliver babies, do C-sections. We kind of sort of do it all like my granddad's.
Yeah.
So left that or graduated there. I was chief resident there. So that was 2005. Left there, and me and my wife, Jamie, we just started looking for a small town out in West Texas and found one little town called Post, and that was named for a guy named C.W. Post. Most people might have heard of Post Toasties or Post cereal, the cereal brand. And back in the day, there are a lot of other things that Mr. Post invented and did. He's quite the entrepreneur, actually, but he moved out to this little town in West Texas, made the town, and tried to make this utopia town, and that's a whole nother story. But it was a cool little town. I thought, yeah, this would be neat, Post Texas, and I'll set up shop here, and I'll be the small town country doctor of my dreams. And so I was the only doctor in the county. It was a rural clinic, county clinics supported by the local taxing health board. And so county clinic, Medicaid, Medicare were the payers mainly, so they don't pay real good. So you gotta make up for that by seeing volume.
Yeah.
So I'd see 40 patients a day, and I was doing what I was trained to do. If you got heartburn, I write a prescription for Nexium. If you had high blood sugar, we call it diabetes, then I'll write a prescription for metformin. If you had high blood pressure, I write a prescription for hydrochlorothiazide. If you had a migraine, Imitrex. And that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, that's what I was taught. That's what I was
That's what you're
trained. I
taught.
went to one of the top institutions in the world. We're the best. This is what you do.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing it, and looking back, I see now very naively, and this is all the doctors I think I can speak for. These American trained doctors walk across that stage. I mean, you think of kids that get accepted from college into medical school. Probably they were pretty much high achievers. They were all A's through junior high and high school, get into a good college, make your grades, get your 4.0s, get your awards, get all your community service, get your volunteer hours, be well rounded. I mean, these are performing kids and
Yeah.
pretty obedient and follow the rules and stay out of trouble and all that. So you get these smart, rule following and want to help people. I think most guys and gals go to med school to help people. Well, we walk across that stage, get that diploma. We get our MD behind our initials. We get our white coat. We're a doctor. And I thought I just learned everything there is to know to go help Miss Smith and Mr. Smith out in Post, Texas. I went to school to learn to help people. I graduated. I survived and graduated. Not the top of my class, but good enough.
But you survived. Yeah.
Yeah, C equals MD is what we used to tell each other in med school. Just pass and you'll get your MD.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm just saying we think we learned all the things there is to know. So I'm out there in Post Texas, and some little old lady will walk in with a newsletter from a holistic health chiropractor that says this herb is good for bladder infections or iodine is good for your thyroid. And I'd be polite, I'm not rude, but I'm looking at that newsletter and I only have 7 minutes to spend with this lady. So I would nicely just say, "Okay, well, if you want to, that's fine, but, I don't know really," but just
But
basically
you weren't taught this in school, and if it were obviously the answer, you would have been taught it.
inside my head, I'm thinking, "Whatever, there's no way that works because if
Mhm.
that really worked for UTIs, my urologist rotation in med school, he would have told me that.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know?
Mhm.
So, that's the assumption all these doctors are working under. If any of this alternative stuff were true, then I would have learned it, and since I didn't, it's not true, and therefore, I'm not even gonna give it the time of day to consider. I'm not gonna sure not gonna spend my time studying the literature or reading a book or going to a conference on it. So, that
Yep.
was my mindset. For 7 years, I did that, just treated symptoms because high blood sugar is a symptom, not a disease.
Mhm.
Acid in your esophagus is a symptom, not a disease. High blood pressure, migraine headaches, abnormal menstrual cycles, all these things that we call diseases are consequences. I didn't know that then, but now I do. So med school taught us how to match your symptom. If you have a complaint of a headache, doctors know there's only about 5 different headaches. There's migraine headaches, tension headaches, cluster headaches, sinus headaches, and post-concussion headaches. Basically, that's your 5 headaches. And so you just ask questions to classify, hey, is this headache like a band squeezing your head real tight? Or is it more like an ice pick on one side only through your eye and bright light makes it worse? And if you get in a dark room, you're better and you get a little nauseated. Oh, yeah, that one. Oh, that's migraine. Okay,
Yep.
that's a matching game.
Mhm.
I just asked you a bunch of questions. Maybe you ran a few tests because I got to match your symptoms, whether this is chest pain, belly pain, headaches, whatever. I've just got to match these symptoms to this label, migraine. I mean, what's migraine? It's a word, it's a label. It's describing real symptoms, but it's a label. Well, guess what? Every label has a corresponding pharmaceutical. So once we get our label done as doctors, we're done. That's how we can do 7-minute visits. Oh, you got chest pain? Well, tell me, is it like crushing heavy pain going to your left arm and jaw? It makes you nauseated. It's worse when you're active, like carrying in groceries. Or is it more in the center of your chest? It's more of a burning, worse when you lay down, worse when you eat spicy food, and better if you drink a glass of milk. That one. Oh, okay, that's GERD. And so we just ask these questions, maybe run the test to label you, and then that label Nexium, or if it's chest pain, then we do aspirin and nitroglycerin. And but there's just the protocol of pharmaceutical
Exactly.
treat that symptom you're complaining of. But wait a minute, what's causing the migraine? What's
Exactly.
causing the acid to come up here where it shouldn't be? What's causing my sugar level in my blood? Shouldn't the something be taking this sugar out of the blood into the cell? Because the cell needs to use it for energy. What's blocking that pathway?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, these are like obvious, simple questions. There's a valve between my food pipe and my stomach. We're supposed to have lots of acid in our stomach, and we learn in medical school the pH should be 1 to 2. Battery acid's 1.5. So that's a ton of acid. And
Yep.
there's a valve right here that's being squeezed shut to keep all that acid down here where it's supposed to be. So, I mean, a second grader could figure this out. Hey, there's probably something wrong with this valve. That's why there's acid up here. Well,
But
we don't get
with 7 minutes with the patient, you can't even ask why though.
exactly, can't do that. So back to my story, I'm just doing this thing, a label matching game, label, writing the prescriptions, doing my thing, 40 patients a day, taking care of the nursing home, taking care of the county jail, the juvenile detention center, the Friday night football game team doctor, house calls on the weekend, doing all that stuff, living my dream, quote unquote, making the money. I mean, because we knew how to crank through it, had a great
Yeah.
team. So we got ended up being in the top 95th percentile of all clinics in America as far as the number of patients, number of procedures, and the revenue. And so the Washington Post got a hold of this and came and followed me around for a week and put me on the front page of the Washington Post newspaper, a picture and a story. This is back in like 2010, 2011. And they're like, here's how you can do this government, basically Medicare, Medicaid, and make it work and make it anyways. So now
Yeah.
we're famous. And there's $1,000,000 sitting in the healthcare district's bank account because the tax money is coming in for the taxing entity, but we're not having to use that tax money because 'cause we're self-sufficient in the clinic. We're actually collecting enough revenue. We don't need that tax money. So it's just sitting there. So they got $1,000,000 in the bank. They built a $1,000,000 brand new clinic, paid that off in a year, built their $1,000,000 revenue back up. So new clinic, $1,000,000 in the bank, front page of Washington Post. Everybody's happy. I'm happy. 7 years into this deal, we're raising our kids in a small town. We're just living the dream. It's perfect, except patients aren't getting any better.
Exactly.
They're temporarily getting better. Blood
Yeah.
sugar's 2, 300. Oh, metformin. Here you go. Oh, yeah, my blood sugar's down, or blood pressure's down, or acid reflux is getting better, or my arthritis feels better, my migraine, Imitrex helped my migraine. But over time, "Hey, doc, I'm still taking my metformin, but my sugar's starting to be higher again. This could be a year or 2 down the road." "Oh, okay, no problem. Just take more of it, more
Yep.
of it." "Oh, wait, we maxed out." "Okay, we'll add a second diabetes pill." "Okay, my sugar's back down some." "Ooh, over the years, it's up back up." "Oh, we'll add a third pill." "Oh, that's all the pills that we can do. We gotta add
With some
insulin now."
insulin. Mhm.
And that's with asthma, that's with ADD, that's with depression, everything. So I'm just adding all these meds, and after 7 years, it's kind of, man, I'm doing a lot of medication pushing here, and I mean, it's kinda working temporarily, but long term, it's not, and I'm just starting to get kids coming in here with adult diseases, a type 2 diabetic and a 7-year-old kid I diagnosed in Garza County. So, like, internally, like, man, this is starting to kinda, but what do you do? I mean, I'm doing
That's
what
all
I'm
you
trained
were
to do.
taught.
This is
Yeah.
all I know to do. This is how you do it, and I'm doing it, and we're the best, and we're the top, and it's working, and we're making the money and all that. So then the fateful day comes where my nurse practitioner, who was helping me at the time, he goes to a bed and breakfast for a getaway weekend with his wife. He tells a bed and breakfast lady that he needs a gluten-free pancake because he has celiac disease, and she says, "I'll make you one of those, but you might wanna talk to this doctor over here who can cure you of celiac." And my nurse practitioner said that, "No, that doesn't, you can't do that." And she said,
Because
"Well, you might
that's what
wanna
you're
talk."
taught in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
"Well, you may wanna talk to him," and, "No, I don't need to talk to him," and, but he was there for the whole weekend, and the doctor's office was in the bed and breakfast, so, I mean, the guy's there, and the innkeeper keeps bugging my nurse, so finally, to be polite, he said, "Alright, I'll talk to the guy." Well, that guy, that doctor, so convinced my nurse prac that if he could increase his microbiome diversity, there's 94 different strains of gut bacteria that'll break down gluten. That if
Mhm.
you could get your stomach acid pH back to 1.5 where it should be, acid chops up proteins, gluten is a protein, and it'll break it down to amino acids. And if you could do this and this and this. So, anyway, just convinced my nurse prac to try some stuff, which he did. And over 2 to 3 to 4 months, my nurse prac is losing weight in a good way. He's a little chubby and he trimmed up.
Mhm.
His complexion cleared up. His energy level went up. His sleep got better. His mood improved. His cycling times on his bicycle races, personal best, personal best. He's performing better. And I'm watching it. He doesn't tell me any what he's doing.
He
I'm
didn't
just
tell
saying,
you he
man,
saw this provider there or anything?
not yet.
Yeah.
I'm seeing, man, Shane's getting looking good, and but then he comes to me one and he said, "Doc, my gut is healed." And I'm like,
The best words I've ever heard.
like, "Shut your mouth. Get back to work." I mean, I didn't believe him one bit, and
You don't learn
man,
anything about the gut in school, you know?
no, 0 I mean, 2 hours of
Uh-uh.
nutrition in 4 years of med school, that's more than most. Most get 0,
I
but
mean, nurse practitioner school's the same.
yeah. So
Yeah.
doctors know nothing unless they go learn it on their own, but so Shane goes to the break room, my nurse prac, gets a breakfast burrito and eats it right in front of me with all that gluten, the wheat flour tortilla. Then he gets a hamburger at lunch, got some cookies from the drug rep that afternoon, so 3 gluten hits, and he was fine. Normally, he would have been cramping, bloody stool, just horrible sick, and called in the next day not showing up for work. He was fine. That was the moment it hit me, "Whoa, what in the world?" I mean, I saw this with my own eyes. So then, of
Yeah.
course, my intellectual part kicks in, "Oh, that this coulda just been like, I don't know, God could have miraculously just healed him for some reason." Or, "This is just like a delayed reaction, and it's gonna hit him here in a few days," or, I mean, I just start trying to rationalize and come up with some excuses. But bottom line, he was totally well in the ensuing days, and he starts telling me everything he's doing. He's convinced, of course. I mean, he's on fire. He's like,
Yeah.
"Wow, this is awesome, and we need to learn this." And but what hit me was, I'm gonna have another celiac patient walk in my door here sometime soon. What am I gonna do?
Exactly.
Am I gonna say, "Eat gluten-free the rest of your life," because that's what medical school taught me?
Mhm.
Or am I gonna say, "Eat gluten-free all your life, that's what med school's taught me," is option 1. There's a second option, you decide. I don't know anything about it, I didn't learn it in school. It only helped one person I know of, and that's my nurse prac, but I saw it with my own eyes, and there's no evidence-based trial that I can point to, and this isn't the standard of care, and this isn't what gastroenterologists would say, and actually, it's not even what I would say. But is there a chance whatever he did would help you too, celiac patient number 2? And that was for me was the decision point of why I don't think I can sit on this and hide it.
Right.
even though I don't know anything about it, and this is totally not making sense to my intellect, something in my spirit man was so I'd said, "Okay, I think I need to if I have another patient like this, I'm gonna send him to Shane, let Shane teach him what he did and see what happens." But I'm Shane's overseeing physician, he's a nurse prac, he's under my authority, I kinda need to learn what he's doing, so I called the doctor at the bed and breakfast, and he pretty much let me have it. I mean, we argued he told me there's no such thing as diseases. And I was like, "Oh, yeah?" And I had my list, my patient list, my nurse would print it out for the day and stick it on the nurse's station countertop so I could mark off when I saw one. Those 40 patients that day, I went right down the list. No diseases, eh? What about hypertension, diabetes, asthma, prostatitis, ulcerative colitis, lupus, fibromyalgia, depression, all right down my whole day's list. And he said, "Nope, those aren't diseases. They're consequences. And if you weren't born with it, you don't need to keep it. Something caused it. You need to be a good doctor, be a detective, figure it out. Quit just treating symptoms." I mean, he was hammering me. And I'm like, Whoa, no way." He's like, "Yeah, type 2 diabetes, no, it's totally reversible."
Mhm.
Like, "What? No, it's not. They would have taught me that in school. Go look on the American Diabetes Association website. It says right there in plain English, type 2 diabetes is a chronic progressive disease. It can be managed maybe with some diet and exercise along with medication at first, and eventually you'll need insulin." That's pretty much a paraphrase right off the American Diabetes Association website. This institution, this group is telling me it's a chronic disease. Who are you, Mr. Big Shot, saying it's not a disease, it's totally reversible?
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't make sense. But then he would come with stuff like, "Hey, if you jumped off a roof of a 5-story building, gravity's gonna kick in, you're gonna fall to the ground and get hurt, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that's because there's natural laws God put into the earth, and it's just how the thing operates. You understand it with that, with" well, here's what it was. I was like I mean, after we argued for many weeks and months and I going back and forth, I'm like, "Roby, I
And
don't
still
have
kept
time."
in contact to argue.
Yeah. I'm like, "I don't have time for this." I'm at this point on my 4th kiddo, my wife and I, and a busy practice and just busy life. I'm like, "I don't have time for all this because he's trying to tell me, 'Go read this study and read this and go to this conference and read this thing and all this stuff.'" I'm like, "Can't you just send me one book that kinda summarizes everything for me? I don't have time for this." And I said, "Summarizes this alternative medicine." And he said, "Alternative? What do you mean alternative?" I'm like, "Well, this kinda holistic hocus pocus quack stuff." And he's like, "Ben, okay, big shot. You're so busy down there in post. What if you gotta add on to that brand new clinic of yours? Y'all built it too small because 'cause you're so busy and you add another nurse crate, you gotta build an addition onto that. Are you gonna call the engineer to design that? Or are you gonna call the alternative engineer? When you need to go to your next medical conference, you gonna call the aviation guys or the alternative aviation guys? Next time your car's making a weird noise, you gonna take it to the mechanic or the alternative mechanic?" And his point obviously was, "Hey, every mechanic has to follow the same law of internal combustion engines. Every pilot has to follow the same law of aerodynamics and lift and thrust and all that." And I mean, there's a order and intelligence and a design to this thing. The body is the most amazingly engineered machine, so to speak, of anything you'll ever lay your eyes and hands on. You need to understand that, trust it, and believe it, and number 1, you need to understand these diseases are all new over the last 100 years. There were
Yeah.
no heart attacks pre-1912, and it wasn't because people weren't living long enough, they were, we can talk about that. So, now it's the number 1 killer, 700,000 people a year are gonna die from this thing, and it's a brand new thing over the last 100 years. Autoimmune disease, there's 100 of them now, all brand new over the last 100 years. Autism, pretty much first case ever, I think 1934, now it's 1 in 36, roughly. I mean, you can go right across the board. Diabetes, pediatricians would never see a diabetic in their whole career, type 2 diabetic. Now that it's rampant, I mean, I think 30 some percent of kids are either diabetic, pre-diabetic. All this is brand new. So once I saw that, whoa, we've done this to ourselves.
Yep.
And then once you start really digging what happened, the big 3, I call it, they started sifting the grain. They started pressing the seeds, cotton seeds first, and getting the oil out and telling us that's a healthier fat than butter, lard, and tallow. And then they started processing that sugar, and in particular, more recently, high fructose corn syrup, but even that fine white processed sugar. Those big 3 came in, and our ancestral foods went away, and our
Mhm.
ancestral sweeteners went away, and that was a huge shift in the nutrition, and these are pro-inflammatory things, and that's what Roby said. He said, "Go that whole list of 40 diseases you say are diseases or consequences." He said, "Take that list home tonight, do a Google search on every one of those diseases, but next to ulcerative colitis, type in inflammation with it. Next to asthma, type in inflammation with it. Next to heart attacks and cancer and depression and all of it." And you'll see a link between inflammation and every quote unquote disease that there is. And so he was right. There's huge connection. Everything's rooted in inflammation. So you go dig into, well, what's that? Well, that's a cell that is so damaged, it can't make enough energy and it's making way too many free radicals. Or think of a carburetor making tons of black smoke out your tailpipe at very little miles per gallon. Instead of 30 miles a gallon, you're down to 10 because your carburetor's so gunked up. That's a mitochondria. Carburetor's your energy factory. So basically, we've gunked up all our carburetors so much. We're making so much black smoke or free radicals. It's damaging the cellular machinery. It's damaging our DNA. It's turning on our cancer genes. That is the core issue: inflammation, mitochondrial or carburetor dysfunction, inefficiency. And so the beauty of what Roby Mitchell taught me and what all these holistic, kind of more functional minded folks understand is give the body what it needs, what it was designed to have, avoid what it wasn't designed to have. And you don't have to be perfect. It's amazing machinery. It can take a hit, it can take abuse, it can take not being stewarded super well, but it can only take so much. And you
Mhm.
start stacking 3 or 4 generations of these mamas not being stewarded and their fetus is growing in a womb that's not stewarded. And you put 3 generations, 4 generations of that. Now it's lost resiliency,
Yeah.
the ability to just take these hits and take these hits. And Blue Cross Blue Shield came out in 2019 and showed the average health span of a millennial starts to crater at age 27, I believe it was.
Oh
Health
my
span
goodness.
curve should match our lifespan curve and just fall off at the end when our lifespan falls off. Our health should be there the whole time till
That's
the end.
terrible.
And there's people groups in the world where we see this. They're called blue zones. And
Mhm.
even in the 1920s, when chronic disease, heart attacks, cancer, autism, all these things started to show themselves and started to escalate pretty quickly. 1920s, 1930s, there was a doctor, a dentist in Cleveland, Ohio. And he went home one night after observing a lot of his patients over these many, many months starting to come in with high blood pressure, arthritis, heart attack. These are all new things. And he
Yeah.
told his wife, he said, "Honey, something's going on here." I mean, I've been a dentist in Cleveland, Ohio for decades, and I'm starting to see patients that are having these weird diseases like high blood pressure and heart attacks. Never heard of them before. And so he left Cleveland, closed his practice. He and his wife traveled for 10 years, the whole world, stopped at 14 different places and lived for a year roughly in each place and documented. So this was in Canada, the natives up there and over in Alaska, and then went to the South Pacific Islands and the natives down in those islands, and he went to South America in the jungle, and he went across to the British Isles, the Swiss Alps into Africa. He documented all these people groups. 0. He didn't see any chronic disease. Malignancies unheard of, hypertension unheard of, arthritis unheard of, perfect teeth too, by the way.
Yeah, I bet.
Tuberculosis resistant is what he called it. Tuberculosis is a very aggressive bacterial infection. And he would see whole villages where the TB, like, it was impenetrable, couldn't come in. These people were, like, resistant or resilient against it. Well, it's because their immune system is so highly functional. The immune system's amazing. It'll gobble up TB, COVID, flu, cancer. It's what it's designed to do, and it will. And that's what he saw.
Yeah.
And so he documented all this. It was amazing. But when a Western missionary would bring in processed sugar, processed white flour, that's when you would start to see the natives' health deteriorate. He traced it back to those things. He called it modern food. Modern food was the culprit in these chronic inflammatory diseases the Western modern world was starting to see. And now, I mean, that was 100 years ago. It's an amazing book he published, Nutrition Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price, pretty much the Bible for most holistic nutrition type minded practitioners. But now the literature is just robust with how lack of good nutrients in the food. And there's other things obviously besides nutrition. We sit too much. We have indoor air and light all the time instead of outdoor air and light. I mean, they've done studies on just looking and sitting and being in green space. We're talking green grass and trees, green space, blue spaces, so lakes, rivers, oceans, birds chirping. They've done studies on nature, being in nature, what it does to our hormone levels, our circadian rhythm, our stress, cortisol, stress, fight or flight hormones, all that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So we're nature deficient. We're movement deficient. We sit all day. Sitting's a new smoking. That's a whole nother podcast to go into the
Yeah.
depths of that. We don't get good sleep. We have electricity. It keeps our lights on way too late. Our circadian rhythm gets disrupted. We eat for way too many hours in the day instead of a narrow eating window, 8 to 10 or 12 hours, or 16, 17, 18 hours of eating window. That's damaging to the carburetor. All these things damage the carburetor. The sitting, the artificial light, all stress is huge. So it's this real simple thing, actually. It's just, I mean, it's not rocket science. Live
Yeah.
and eat and move like your ancestors. The problem is we live in a modern world that really, really, really makes it hard to do that
It
in
does.
unless you get educated and you believe this truth and then you make it an active part of your lifestyle. And I try to teach my people, if you're not actively trying to not be a standard American, then you're automatically falling into standard American. And standard Americans die younger than anybody else, have the most diseases, take the most pharmaceuticals, spend the most money by far to come in last place, to be the sickest and die the youngest. That's your standard. That's the path you're on, unless you're purposely doing things to exit off that path. And it's
Right.
so simple to get up every hour and move a little bit, get some
Right.
sunshine every day, eat real food. You don't have to be perfect, but do these basics. Get some salt, pinch of salt in your water, mineralize that water, mineralize you. We're demineralized. That carburetor needs minerals. That carburetor needs sunlight, these basic things. So that's kind of a long answer, but
I
that
love
was
it.
my journey. So that was about 10 years of conventional medicine and learn the truth. So that's been about 12 years now. And, if someone walks in with a blood pressure through the roof, 220 over 120 crazy high, I'm gonna give them a prescription. And then
There's a
I'm gonna
time to
say,
place.
"Now get with my health coach and let's talk about why it's doing this, and we'll get you off the prescription when there's no more need for that."
Exactly. I love that. Yeah. I have so many questions, but I'm like, you said it all. That's it. That's great. I'm wondering, like, did you ever receive any pushback to this holistic approach from anybody?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, the county clinic, they
Yeah,
fired me, and nothing against them, and I've said this publicly lots of times, and they know I love them, and, it's not throwing them under the bus. It's not them, it's the system.
it is. Yeah.
I mean, once a month, those financials from corporate office would come down, big old packet stapled together, and you flip through it, and the board members are up there at the front, me and the administrators and clinic staff there. We flip those. Yeah, man, y'all are rocking it. Y'all are like model clinic. I knew how it was. We're model clinic because 'cause we're making money because 'cause we're doing volume and treating symptoms. So when I learned that, whoa, you can get to the root and fix it, but it takes 1 to 2 hours for this a visit. I mean, obviously, if enough people wanna do the 1 to 2 hour version, I'm gonna see 8 people a day instead of 40, the money's gonna tank. I knew that,
It's
they knew
gonna get
that.
better. Yeah.
We tried to make it mesh, it just didn't. At least in that time, it couldn't mesh.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to leave. So that was the first, "Whoa, man, this is a serious deal." They just fired me on a Friday afternoon after 7 years of building this thing up for them and $1,000,000 in their bank account and all that. No bitterness or resentment. It actually set me free to be more of who God made me to be. That set me on my journey to
Yeah.
today. So I'm actually super grateful, but that was some pushback. Colleagues, I don't like hang out with doctors. I don't go to the country club and go to socials with doctors. It's just not my style. And which, I mean, I'm not against people that do that,
Yeah.
but I just wasn't really much in that crowd. I was the only doctor down this county clinic, isolated from the big medical center 50 miles,
That's
40
true.
miles north in Lubbock. So not a ton there really. I'm sure, they talked about me, but whatever. The authorities like medical boards and stuff, as long as you like in Texas, we're protected with the medical board rule 200. You can do complementary and alternative medicine as long as you've offered standard of care. Basically, that's the rule. So I knew that. My attorneys advised me. So I knew how to word that and how to not only word it, but like document it right and do it right. So
Yeah.
not really. I mean, a little bit here and there, COVID for sure. Lots of, I think a lot of people just had pushback. If you treated patients, if you asked questions, if you didn't just get in line, follow protocols, if you had a question on the mask, because I mean, masks are going to block my oxygen flow. They're going to increase my CO2. That increase my stress. That decrease my immune system. It's not filtering a virus.
Yeah.
So that's actually going to damage my health and my immune system. And I need my immune system to go up. So
Right.
no, I'm not going to do that. And my staff's not going to do that. I mean, I stood for the truth on that because it was the right thing to do for my health.
Right, right.
Now, even that being said, if I had a patient come in and they were so fearful, I would ask them, "Would it help your fear if I put a mask on?" And so, I mean, I would do that. I'm gonna put the patient first.
Yeah.
But that kinda thing, standing up for, "Wait a minute, this technology that's coming out that they're saying is gonna be the answer here. Whoa, 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 time out." The best I can see, Moderna, their investor prospectus, 2018. You legally have to give this prospectus to your investors, and I read in there, not exact quote here, but paraphrasing, "This technology platform is very, very difficult. If we give too low of a dose, we don't see the outcome. If we give too high of a dose, it's toxic. We can't really find a sweet spot to deliver the payload and have effect without having the toxicity. It's such a challenge. We're abandoning the technology, and we don't think anyone's gonna be able to get it figured out." That was the last public statement I could find. So all I did was tell people that, "Hey, this is what they said to their investors a few years ago. We're about to roll something out. I'd like some data, please. I'd like to have some confidence in what you're rolling out because here's what you just said last time that I can find." I mean, I'm trying to be open-minded here, even though I'm also thinking, "My immune system's so strong, we need to steward that." And there are
Right.
therapeutics we can use too. But anyway, so stuff like that, just a common sense approach, pointing
Mhm.
to literature, pointing to evidence, trying to be reasonable, trying to be, let's not be argumentative so much here. Oh, major pushback, big time.
Isn't that
And then
crazy?
when you try to educate the public, of course, you gotta be careful on with censorship, and we got highly censored.
Yeah.
So the pushback's probably mostly been during the last few years.
Yeah. As a doctor, like, you do have that ability to just go open your own clinic,
Yeah.
whereas, like, nurse practitioners in Mississippi, I think it's like that in Texas too, like, we can't practice without a provider.
Yeah, doctors, I don't know. I mean, they're gonna have to wake up. Confidence in doctors, January of 2020 was 70% trust in doctors, and now it's at 40. Absolutely demolish the trustworthiness to that whole system, including the doctors. And, I mean, again, it's a system issue. The doctors were educated very, very narrowly. When I
Right.
actually have a doctor who will listen, and usually it's because their spouse is real sick and they enroll them in our clinic, and then their spouse
Mhm.
gets better. Sometimes it's the actual doctor who's real sick and comes and gets better. That's when they open their mind.
Yeah.
So there are some, but usually, like everyone else, when they're real, real sick, they'll seek out a functional or alternative approach because they're so desperate and sick. But if a doctor's actually curious and asking, I'll just take them back and say, "Hey, did you know the American Homeopathic Association, AHA, founded in, I think it's 1845, and the AMA, 1848." So there were these 2 competing societies. One was predating the other one. There were 5,000 graduates of the homeopathic medical schools in the United States. There were 23 medical schools that were homeopathic. At the turn of the century, all the kind of elite or upper crust of society, like Rockefellers, they actually preferred homeopathy. Even the queen, the monarchs back in Great Britain and Europe, homeopathy. The New York City Health Commissioner, 1918 flu outbreak, he was a homeopathic, and he recommended some things that were non-standard, and he was accredited with, "Hey, the death rate not so bad in New York City compared to everywhere else, and because of your homeopathic thinking and recommendations." But anyways, just letting them see, there were homeopathic medical schools, herbalists, naturopathic, chiropractic, osteopathic, allopathic, all these things. And Carnegie and Flexner got together and Carnegie and Rockefeller got together and they hired a guy named Abraham Flexner. He was an education specialist, and they asked him to go survey the land, survey the education curriculum of all these medical healthcare curriculum. They're all different and varied curriculums. And he came back and reported to him, "Yeah, there's too much chaos, basically. We need to standardize this thing." And he recommended standardization of medical education to the allopathic model. And that report, the Flexner report, I think around 1910, that started it, because then you have an accredited medical school. and doctors were only gonna support, reimburse, and, these licensed doctors. So the AMA, Rockefeller, Carnegie, the money went to those schools, those research institutes, those hospital systems, and that curriculum, and those doctors were licensed. Everybody else was marginalized or even made illegal. So all of a sudden, 23 homeopathic medical schools close. Like 1,500 herbalists are out of business. Naturopaths not licensed, so they go away. So we lost all the ancient healing arts that have been around for hundreds and hundreds or thousands of years, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. All of these other modalities had one thing in common. They came alongside, partnered with, lined up with your natural, native, intuitive, built-in, designed healing capacity.
Mhm.
And people understand this when they get a paper cut, they don't worry about it, they don't freak out they're gonna bleed to death because they know there's something in my body that knows how to put a clot on that and heal it.
Yeah.
And they may not think about this part, but I do. That system that will clot that paper cut and keep you from bleeding to death, that's on a razor's edge. And if it gets triggered a little too much, too inappropriately when you don't actually have a cut, you start clotting in your bloodstream, you die from blood clots. If it's tweaked a little too much the other way and you get a paper cut and you don't clot enough, you actually can bleed out from a paper cut, eventually die from it. It's an amazingly designed system. No one
Yeah.
thinks about that really, but it operates, it heals yourself. When you break a bone, just get it kind of lined up, it heals itself. And when you really dig in and see the cells are actually not only healing themselves, but regenerating themselves. Cells die all the time and you make new ones all the time. So once you get that, the body heals itself, fixes itself, autopilot healing, and all these other modalities just came alongside and supported, assisted, like encouraged that. There's one of all those medical education curriculum that's suppressed and fought against, just treated the symptom, and that was allopathic. That's the route that was chosen for us, and since 1910 to today, 110 years later, our health has absolutely deteriorated. In 1910, roughly, is when the seed oils came in, they started sifting the flour shortly thereafter, and the sugar too, so the food system was changing. And that's the birthing point of modern big ag, big pharma, all the big stuff and money, money, money behind it all. And we got rid of our ancestral wisdom. And now we're using our own intellect, our own wisdom, I'll put in quotes, man's wisdom, apart from God. Darwin comes in and tells us we evolved from nothing out of nothing, from pawns come to us, which is a total lie, provable by science now. Totally debunked that theory, but the whole modern medical world is based on that theory. So no wonder heart disease continues to rise and be number 1. Cancer continues to climb at younger and younger ages, more and more cancer. No wonder we have the worst infant mortality rate in the entire world of industrialized countries. We have the worst maternal mortality rate. More of our mamas are dying during birth. We have the worst overall death rate. We die younger than anybody. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's because of this system, and it's because we've turned our back on the creator who designed this thing, and his book tells us about it. His spirit can lead our spirit into all truth, and then religion gets involved and kind of blocks some of that even. That's another story maybe. But we've just completely gone our own way, a way that seems right to man, and in the end, it leads to death, and that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And we've submitted to the unknowingly, through deception, through lack of knowledge, we've accidentally submitted to the lordship of scientism. It's a religion.
Yes.
And it's from the evil one. It's a kingdom of darkness. I mean, science is observation of God's creation. We just go observe it. It's amazing. I was looking at a spider building a web with my daughter last night. Incredible watching this spider make a web. I don't even know how that happens. Right now, all the acorns are falling out of our oak trees, and I picked one up. And me and my boy were talking about how does this even work? How does this thing, even if you cracked that open and studied it, like nobody knows how this seed grows into this thing. And I mean, we're eating a raspberry this morning, those little tiny raspberry seeds. How in the world?
Yeah.
Nobody knows this thing. It's amazing, this creation. And we've turned our back on that thing and that wisdom. And we're sowing and reaping. I mean, we're reaping what we've sowed. But people are opening their eyes, they're opening their heart, they're repenting, which means changing your mind, and they're going back to the truth. Hopefully not to a counterfeit, which in a way, I want this to sound wrong. We gotta be careful not put integrative, holistic, alternative, functional up on a pedestal as the answer. That's a
Right.
piece. I describe it, there's symptom management, allopathic or naturopathic. Treat a symptom. High blood sugar is a symptom. You can treat it with metformin or berberine. Berberine's a natural herb. Then there's stewardship, and then there's made whole. Stewardship is quit eating the big three, the processed grains, seeds, and sugars. And probably your carburetor's is going to start working better, and that blood sugar will come down all by itself. You won't need to treat the symptom.
Mhm.
But made whole, that's your thinking because your thinking's programming that carburetor. Your thinking programs your DNA. You will hit a ceiling if all you do is diet and exercise, supplement, hydrate well. That's stewardship. And you'll hit a ceiling because we're not just physical molecules. There's an interaction of the physical and the non-physical, the natural and the supernatural, and that intersection is us. God designed it that way and made it that way. We're made in his, likeness, his image. We're a spirit being housed in the flesh, and that our beliefs in our heart change the structure of the water that your DNA and your carburetors float in. I think there's a deeper even level than that. It's changing the vibrational frequency of those internal working parts, like a tuning fork tuned at a certain frequency, or that opera singer hitting that note and shatters that light. There's a frequency of truth. God spoke it all into existence. The spoken word is a vibrational frequency. All creation's upheld by a spoken word. It was the spoken word that got. And when you look in quantum physics, you go down deep enough in your body, in your cells, and your molecules, atoms, protons, neutrons, and electrons, most of that, 99% of an atom is empty space of particles. It's full of energy. And when
Mhm.
the truth is believed in your heart, it changes the vibrational frequency of that energy and allows those molecules of the physical realm to work better. And when you believe a lie from the accuser, it changes that frequency. And there's no way to optimize just with diet and exercise alone. You'll hit a ceiling. So we got to go deeper, made whole. That's Jesus telling those 10 lepers, go show the rabbi you're clean. The one leper comes back and Jesus said, hey, weren't there 10 of you? But he told that one, you're made whole. He used a different word, sozo. And that's
Mhm.
where I think he wants our heart. He wants us to trust him, listen to him, be guided by his spirit, not by our intellect. So it's a heart work that needs to be done. And people are just disconnected from that in so many ways because we're so intellectual, rational, left brain. We've grown up with that. We've been trained in that. Even in church, we just religiously we know about God. A lot of us, like the Pharisees, they knew all about the scripture and all about God, but they didn't have the heart. And Jesus came to show the heart part of it. And
Right.
that's where we got to go for true wellness, I think.
Yes. I love all of that. Couldn't agree more. I think that's awesome, and thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's just really great to connect with another provider who's like-minded. I'm curious, Dr. Ben, do you have any wisdom or encouragement you wanna leave with any of the listeners today?
The thing I like to leave people with, it might sound a little cliche, but seek the kingdom first. Looking back on my life, that's what got this whole thing started,
Yeah.
and it was way before that gluten-free pancake that my nurse practitioner ordered. It was years before that when we couldn't get pregnant, and we were seeking a baby first instead of the kingdom first. And I'd grown up in church my whole life. No one taught me what the kingdom was. They didn't teach me the gospel of the kingdom, and when we were desperate in our 24th in a row negative pregnancy test on the counter, 12 of those months at an infertility doctor. And I went to the Bible and read that verse, Matthew 6:33, and I grabbed my wife, Jamie, and said, "Look at this. This says seek the kingdom first." And we aren't doing that. And we probably need to be talking to God about that. And we need to get right with God about that. We need to confess that. We need to ask him, number 1, what's the kingdom? Because I don't know what that is, and I'm supposed to seek it.
Yeah.
But my number 2 when I was talking to him about this was, I believe, but help me with my unbelief. So we gotta be honest with where we are at in our heart. So in my heart, like, I'm not even sure if you're a real God, even though I'm reading your Bible and I'm going to church and I was raised in church and I'm known I got baptized and all that, but there's so much unbelief because of Darwin, evolution. I mean, I sat in that church 5 days a week for 12 years with public education. So there's a lot of unbelief, and I had to confess that. I had to talk through that. I had to ask him to help me with my unbelief. So that was a real simple prayer, took 5 minutes. I wanna seek the kingdom first. You're gonna show me what it is, help me with my unbelief. That's where I tell people to start, because where you are in your heart is really what matters. God already knows it. Actually, he just needs to hear it from you. You need to be honest with yourself. Then his spirit will start to guide you and lead you into all truth.
Yeah.
And don't get hung up on so many different in the physical diet and supplements, physical protocols. I'm not saying don't do them, but if you in your heart put those up as your savior, this diet's going to cure me. This diet's the end all be all. This diet is, I mean, it's an idol. And
Yeah.
if in your heart you're looking at that to save you and set you free, uh-uh. And
Right.
even if you commit to that and you're seeing great results, I mean, great. But eventually you're going to hit the ceiling. My mentor, Roby Mitchell, who got me into all this, he died early, prostate cancer. He beat it twice with natural protocols. Third time it got him. And he told me on his deathbed, you need to go teach the people that they'll reach a ceiling with just diet, exercise, and supplements and good hydration. You got to go deeper. So that's my last piece that I would encourage the listener to just, and not in a pressure way, definitely not in fear, in an exciting way. Your creator made you, put you here with a purpose. Go ask him what it is. Ask him who you are, not what the accuser said you
Yeah.
were. And you believe that lie about yourself, or you believe a lie about him if he's mad at you, or he's not gonna show up because he didn't show up over here, or how'd he let that bad thing happen? Whatever's in your heart, you gotta start talking to him about it, and he'll reveal himself. He'll reveal the truth in your heart, and you'll be set free, and your mitochondria will be set free, and then the diet and the exercise and supplements will work a lot better.
Exactly. I love it. I loved this conversation, Dr. Ben. This was so much fun, so exciting, and I could ask you to just keep talking, but I know you got patience to see. So thank you so much for being here today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation. I love to spread this truth. So keep doing the good work out there. There will be some doctors in Mississippi. Rise up because God said so. His kingdom is coming. It has come, is coming, and will come. And so you just be encouraged.
Yeah. Thank you for being a part of my journey on What the Gut podcast. For a deeper dive into today's topics, head over to allisonandwellness.com/whatthegut or find the detailed show notes linked below. Hey, and don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button, and if you love this one, please leave me a review. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Connect with me and stay updated and engaged with my awesome community. Plus, share these valuable insights with your tribe. They deserve to feel as amazing as you do. You can find me at Allison_and_wellness on Instagram. Your support means the world to me. I'm looking forward to our next awesome chat. But until then, stay curious, don't drink too much coffee, keep the vibrant energy flowing, and take care of your gut. Catch you real soon. Oh, and hey, if you're ready to dive deeper into personalized wellness, check out my one-on-one health coaching program at allisonandwellness.com. Let's make your journey to holistic health truly transformative.